press the record the record button. Pressing buttons with a mouse isn't really pressing buttons. All right, let me start. And I'm just going to finish the last few slides. Then I'm going to talk about the exam. And then I'm going to start a little bit of something that I'll then provide you with a link, this e-waste thing that I want us to watch. But we're going to watch a little bit of it today to get into it because I think it's valuable. So that's what we're doing. All right. Hope everybody is well and safe and fantastic in this world. All right. So give me just a second. Oh, that's not going on. There we go. Okay. Share. All right. And so actually, I guess I stopped that real quick, but it's, would you support laws that make you compost? I guess I don't have to show that necessarily. So 52 people said yes, 8 people said no, 1 person said C. And why? Why or why not? Let's just start off today with a little bit of that. We don't need to do it too much, but at the same time, I think it's a big deal as we look at composting and waste in other countries. And of course, there's other countries that are more successful than us for certain reasons that, you know, and mechanisms that we might not be because of the nature of our culture. But what do you think? What did you answer? Yes or no, and why?
I answered yes, because if there is a law that makes it so that we're supposed to compost, I'm hoping that, like, congruently with that, there would be more access to places where we can compost. So those who maybe don't have the space or the means to compost in their home would then have access to compost publicly or maybe in their neighborhood or area. And also, I think it would kind of create a social norm, kind of like the momentum we're talking about with like cell phones, but instead it would be like, oh, yeah, composting is normal. And then we could evolve better ways to maybe do that as a community.
Yeah, I like to use masks as an example, and not as anything political because there's nothing political about it. It's purely scientific, right? But if you get the messaging that it's not real half the time or 3/4 of the time, then there will be a lot of people that will behave likewise. And now that the messaging is coming out stronger and people see that, yeah, you normalize it, you make it part of what people do. And of course, I think that, and I'm interested in hearing, although I guess only like 8 people said no, but I am interested in hearing from those folks, especially because sociologically it's different. And I think that there's a way that I wrote the question purposely, even to rub people the wrong way, as we're like exploring different perspectives. So yeah, good. Let's normalize it and have some public composting, and that's not all that difficult. All right, what else?
I personally said no because not because I'm against composting or anything like that. I think it would be great if we did have a social norm where that was a thing. I just think it would be extremely difficult to enforce those laws. And then if we did have any type of punishment for not composting or anything like that, it would just be more petty crimes that would perpetuate these like ideologies of breaking all.
I mean, we have examples all over the place, though. Just to play the other side of that, or a different side, we have lots of other of those types of laws, correct? Like the first thing that popped into my mind when you were saying that is I was like, yeah, and then I thought, well, like seatbelt laws, right? I mean, they aren't enforced very often, but when they are, you might start wearing your seatbelt. I don't know. I think there's lots of ways to look at that. And I'm glad, since there was less people that said that, you know, yeah, no, nobody would think you're against composting. I think there's, like I said, lots of reasons why somebody might choose that. And I think it's important for us to understand that as well. All right, why else? Yes or no, and why?
Yeah, I said no because, like, I don't know, just in general, I kind of want less government in my life. I mean, I don't know if I really trust the government either to, like, enforce it or kind of implement the law correctly.
Right, and exactly actually why I wrote that, right? Because in many ways, to get anything done, we're going to need more laws. But that is not an easy sell in this culture, right? Whereas we're going to look at like Korea or South Korea or whatever in regards to like what they did with food waste, and you don't really have a choice. Now that turns out to be really, really, really effective, but I can see from multiple perspectives why people in this culture would and are weary of more laws. And because that goes along with a lot of legitimacy, which is like, how do you enforce that? What's that really mean? And on the other side, well, maybe that helps normalize things. Maybe having those laws, right? Because nobody's really stressing out about seatbelt right now. Either you're wearing them or you're not. Either you get a ticket for it or most likely you don't, right? So we have to recycle cardboard. Everyone doesn't think it could be possible. Compost is something inconvenient. So people working long hours living in small shared homes after much. Yeah, absolutely. So you bring up another good point, Madison, which is access, right? We can't expect people, and I know you probably don't know this, but for the longest time, I mean, cars didn't have seat belts. And if they did, most of the time they were like tucked into and under the seat. Like it wasn't really an expectation. There wasn't a focus on saving lives that way. I mean, like I said before, maybe, you know, if you had a DUI, they'd drive you home and drop you off. And, you know, and so of course that led to a lot of drunk driving and people, you know, realized slowly over time the value of seatbelts. But yeah, you have to make it accessible. You have to put them in vehicles. You have to, you know, make them safe for you. Have to make it comfortable for people. And that's all that accessible piece, right? Good. All right, well, let's pop over. And I asked this question. And I'll get to that last, I guess. You can go ahead and click into, it's open tonight later, but if you want to click in to answer a couple top hat questions, I'll do that one at the very end. Okay. Do a screen share. Cha. All right. So solutions. It's important to know that culturally, not every solution is going to work with right? Like we already talked this semester about sacrificing things and how it's just not a great idea within the cultural confines of the United States and as a practical piece, because not everybody has something to sacrifice, right? So what works well for affluent countries like us doesn't necessarily work well for countries that are not. I mean, you've got huge garbage trucks to move a lot of waste in this culture. In a lot of places where that buildup or the people have trash is like inaccessible, you've got local transfer stations and that might be for water too. So more cost effective in many places to be able to do it. And of course, the text looks at, Carolyn looks at food waste in South Korea. They made it illegal to send food waste to the landfill. Well, right now, there's a lot of things that you're not supposed to take to the landfill. They have to ask you every single time. It would be illegal to dump it. We do have things like that. We don't have really stringent rules, you know, for food waste, which is one of our biggest pieces of waste, right? Especially when we consistently say, oh, can organic farming or conventional farming feed the world and this starvation and right? Like we know that if we look at the amount of food waste, that's not being very sincere necessarily when we take into consideration that we could be feeding people with this waste. You have to separate into a 100% compostable bag. And by doing that, South Korea has removed 98% of food waste from its municipal waste stream. I mean, that's important. I might have talked about, did I talk about the piece where they just shut off all the factories in China before Obama visited? Did I talk about that in class before? I can't remember, but the department was interviewing somebody for a position and they had a picture and it was on a Monday and a stadium was in the background and you couldn't see it like a block away, like, you know, stadium on campus, but can't see it because there's so much, you know, photochemical smog. And they know they're going to get a visit from the president 2 days later. So all factories and manufacturing shuts down. And like 48 hours later, same place, same picture, you can see like blue sky. You can see the stadium clear as day. Now, what is the chance of accomplishing that? They accomplished that in China because somebody said do that and everybody did that. What are the chances of accomplishing that here, right? If somebody was going to visit, we had a lot of pollution, could we be like, stop all industry on Friday? I mean, right? Like, no, of course not. And those are cultural considerations. We only compost 2.6% of our food waste. You know, that's failure, right? Failure, such a good guy. So we can do better. And last thoughts on garbage cow and on waste and the construct of waste. You know, this waste is used to feed livestock in many places. It's important. We're going to look at that film called Dive just to see how much. But it doesn't even need to be like a safety concern for human beings, and all of it would be eaten by livestock. We've got laws that force us to throw our food away immediately, which accelerates the wasting of food. We normally do dates, for expiration dates well in advance, and food safety is an important thing. Bacteria is real, you better believe it, but leading to a tremendous amount of food waste with no plan on the back end of that, right? So how can we use food waste in ways that are meaningful to humans? How can we change laws to make this happen? Even though we don't like a lot of laws in this country, we're gonna have to do that. People whose job it is to change that momentum, we're gonna have to do it, right? That doesn't mean that we have to make oppressive laws with giant repercussions that increase the social justice like inequality. That's also counterproductive. So smart laws, and believe me, those actually exist. How can we influence those laws? Sorry, what other creative uses can we find for our massive food waste? Look, this doesn't have to, all of this could be used, and there are dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of ways to make sure that we don't, at least with food waste, have that repercussion. And of course, then we need to look at all the other realms of waste, right? Like e-waste and toxic waste and output from industry, and what's that look like? I mean, not leveling mountains for coal, not digging into the earth for natural gas. That's not me, and that's not some hippie consortium behind the scenes making sure that that happens. That's just the momentum of fossil fuels. They're pretty much done. And as each one of those, dirty, inefficient, and dangerous methods of energy production as well on that end cease, then you'll see that waste reduce too. So that's how something like energy is connected to this. It's connected to food production. It's connected to biodiversity concerns, agriculture. It's connected to waste as well. Okay, so let me go over here. And where are we? Oh, hold on a second. Stop this. Okay. Now, before we start this other piece, we'll go for about 15, 20. At least 2.6% is more than zero. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I don't want to look at that as a strictly negative thing. I would say this, we can set higher goals than 2.6%, right? Like if we set a goal of like 15 or 20%, we'd easily achieve that. And at least it's a goal. I guess by looking at the comment, at least 2.6% is more than zero. Well, we don't have a goal, right? So, it's interesting because many new incoming administrations have like a 100-day goal. People want to say, well, you're not going to meet that in 100 days. Well, yeah, a lot of the goals that us as human beings don't meet that we set, but you never do if you don't have a number or a pillar or a milestone or a goal that you actually set, right? So, I don't know. I'm going to ask this. I haven't asked this before since I think you bring up a good thought about waste or food waste. Let's just go with food waste. What's an acceptable goal of food waste reduction? Americans can handle within 2 years a reduction of what percent of food waste? And I'm telling you, I reduced all my food waste to zero within a few days of having our first 6 chickens. All right, so I'm gonna set that bias in the back of your mind. What do you think? What could be a realistic goal? Because we haven't set one. See, this is why I love this class. Somebody right now needs to write or call their senator, and then you send me a copy of the email, and I want to see it and say, right, politely, I think it's important that we are the first state that sets a goal for food waste reduction. It's easy. It'll make you look good as a politician, and it matters, right? Somebody do that. Somebody email Polis. It's like somebody reach out and see if that's something they've got. Do they even have that as a goal? And if they don't, let's do it. I'm absolutely serious today. Okay, so 20%. Maybe start with 10, 30%, 15 to 20. Increase year by year. 10% seems realistic. 30% seems decent. All right, tell me why. I'm more interested in the why.
I think we have to start with a pretty low number so that people don't get really overwhelmed and they're more motivated to actually try to do it because they think it's realistic and they could actually achieve that. And then as people start doing it more and more and it becomes more part of our culture, we can increase it year by year.
I do like the sound of that. Why else?
I think it depends on how elastic like certain companies and industries would be like growing with those claims, because there's so much nuance around it. Like if we're striving for like personal, like just household waste to be reduced, I mean, sure, you could easily do that, but it's not super, like you said, accessible for people if there aren't systems in place. So I feel like, yeah, we would have to start really low, like 10 to 30 range, and then go from there.
Right. Look, we're going to need some kind of mechanism, especially for restaurants and people that have a lot of grocery stores. Now, if you think about this, there are mechanisms already, right? A lot of grocery stores have the mechanism to go to a food shelf. Like restaurants do not. Like oftentimes most restaurants, whatever the waste is going right in their dumpster. So knowing that a lot of grocery stores, places that sell food like that are connected with a food bank of some sort or a food shelf. Yeah. Because again, you can't change your behavior, but if General Mills changes their behavior, I mean, yeah, that's a much bigger. So great, all good considerations. Yeah, it seems to me like a 10 to 20% range would seem realistic. It would be cool if somebody could write a letter that had a few food waste facts, the importance of it and its connection to waste, and you always have to make them look like you have to add this in the letter. I don't know that this is being proposed anywhere yet. You might be some of the first people or the first state to even propose this. It's politics, right? Yeah. Restaurants could have a discount for food items that have not yet been sold. Yes, absolutely right. People, low-income folks could, get a decent meal for half the price. But what about people paying full price, right? It's like, let's talk about student loan forgiveness. And people who paid off their loans, who know how hard it is, who are ex-students, are like turning on students and like, never. But I love this idea. Yeah, absolutely. Give an incentive to restaurants. Yes, look, incentive. If you incentivize things like fracking or gas and oil drilling, or even if you incentivize certain types of agriculture, so no value judgment. Let's just go strictly, you're incentivizing some industries, incentivize others. Incentivize industries that aren't, to see if you can get production from those industries that you haven't before, that makes you more comprehensive overall, right? Like able to do more on a larger scale. All right, love it. Okay, so here's what I'm going to try and do. Actually, let's talk about the exam right now. Denver has a sustainable food council that's working to change policies around food. Ooh, okay. I'm going to copy that. I'm going to even narrate that I'm copying it, because that's what old people do when they look at the internet. Here's take my glasses and be like, oh, it's a Denver something. I can't. Well, anyway. All right. So let me talk about the test quickly. Yeah, and you have to have reasonable goals, right? I mean, think of anything. Think of your classes, the amount of credits you're going to take. That matters. That's got to be reasonable. If you're going to try and lose weight, yeah, you can be like, yeah, I need to be cut like I was, whatever. You got to be reasonable. That's why so many diets in general don't work, right? You're just supposed to cut out everything that you enjoy or whatever that is. And if we talk about sacrificing things in our practices with the environment, we know that's not always a great motivator. So awesome. I've copied that link. Yeah. I saw a couple things on the exam. I saw a couple questions about an hour ago. Let me look here at my email. And I requested a change of a couple things that I thought weren't all that clear. I clarified one other question. Sorry, I know I'm doing that thing again where I like stare at the internet while people are watching me, but I just want to look at this test because I think that'll benefit folks. Know about sequestering carbons. Know about sequestration of carbon. I didn't talk a ton about it, but we did talk a little bit carbon sinks and what that means. Remember also that I threw in there that term, the sociological imagination, C. Wright Mills, you know, that was important because I'm setting the tone with some of the sociology that we're talking about. Garbage Warrior, there's 3 or 4 questions from Garbage Warrior. Yes. Yeah, you know, the IPCC, know what that stands for. I think I even had that on something else. Stabilization triangles, you know, geoengineering, the things that go along with those stabilization triangles. So where we throw like a wedge in something to cut off the amount and rate of CO2. Those I believe are on the study guide, but as I was just casting my eyes on the actual exam, there you go. There's a few pointers. So if you watch this video or here today, I think that that's, you know, that's a good thing. All right, will it be on a lockdown browser? I don't believe so. There is a password that will be released. I think it's open tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. Be reminded of my exam policy. And the exam policy is you can actually miss one exam and retake it on a makeup day at the end of the semester. Meaning there's never a replace your grade thing. I'm not into that. But if you wake up tomorrow morning and you're like, I didn't study, I was busy not partying, that's like a typical college. I was busy studying for another class. I don't know. You don't have to take it. You could take it at the end of the semester. If you wake up or you've been, or I don't know. Just like you just said, you wake up tomorrow morning and you're like, no, I'm fine with that. I build that in for one exam so that if you're having a bad day, if you didn't study, if life is intervening, then you can do that. You can't do that. You can't miss like exam 1 and 2 and then the makeup day take 2 tests, you know. So, but it is a way, if it's working for you lately, if you're in a good place, you know, once a semester, I take that into consideration. Closed note, I would prefer, but again, I'm not monitoring that. So you're human beings and I teach sociology, so I'm a realist. Is test open or closed? Notes. Closed. Is it timed? Yes, I think it'll be timed to about an hour, 60 minutes, 65 minutes, 63 and a half minutes. I don't know. Somewhere around there. Trust me, you should be able to, if you've studied and you have been rehearsing the right material in class, you've been watching the videos and the lectures and you've been reading the text, I think that I designed my class so that reinforcement, that's retention. I want you to remember this information, and there's a tail in the background of your video. I think it's a cat tail, maybe it's a dog tail, not quite sure. Huckle's over there. Is he over there? There he is. Can you see him? Anyway, all right. Any other questions? Okay, so on this video, oops, I copied that one. On this video, there is in the lecture itself, so you can go download the PowerPoint, and I'll go to announcements after this and I'll post it. There's an e-waste video. I think it's only about 30 minutes. There's a couple, oh, a fellow Catahoula, oh, fantastic. Pick that dog up and put it in front of a camera. No, I don't know how big that dog is. Anyway, I totally lost my train of thought. What was I saying? Oh, I totally spaced what was I saying? I got into dogs. Anybody? E-waste, yes, thank you. Oh, wow, that was gone. There's a link to an e-waste piece that I would like you to watch. There's a couple questions on it from the exam, and it's worth watching. Yes, it's like 1980s, but we're looking at percentages that are like 1,800% in cell phones, 500% rise in e-waste in this country, 800% in another one. It's a big deal, and I think it's a good example of that. So check announcements, because I'm going to post that video. Now, what's that mean? Well, I'm done lecturing, and since it's on YouTube and it doesn't cost any money, you can watch it today at your own leisure. But knowing that, you know, I think the video's 30, 40 minutes long and we have that much time left in class. So I'm not trying to take extra of your time, but also you don't need to watch me watching a video, watching you who's watching. Isn't there a song like that? Something like that? Anyway, I don't know. Any other questions? I think we're good. Yeah? Okay. So 50 questions, 2 points apiece. If you have any concerns, Format of the test is multiple choice and true false. I've taken the names who get extended testing times and I've programmed that in the back end. If you open up your exam and that's not there, I really, personally, I wouldn't worry because most people get it done even in that scenario very fast, but I know people don't want to stress. So let me know, send me an email. Because the exam's open for 24 hours and I check my email frequently, I could change that if that status isn't there. But I've been keeping a spreadsheet of those names. So I think I've got that down. Sure, you already mentioned. Okay, yep, already said that. All right, well then, be good people and do good things. Have a fantastic exam. Oh, whoever says that? Nobody. But I'll say it. People go out there and really do well. Just achieve. So much achieving. So much winning. All right, so do that, and then I will see you on Tuesday. In between that time, be safe. Mask up, be good people, do good things. If you're in Colorado, likely, wow, it's actually cold. Like our pond refroze really quickly. So I'm going to be hanging out, ice skating on the pond. I don't ice skate actually. Julie's from Minnesota. She ice skates. And the boys just like get near concussions 30 times in 5 minutes. So we're going to have some fun in the ice, play outside, be good people, do good things. Send me an email if you need to about anything. Take care, everybody. Peace. Be well.
Thank you.
Yep. Thanks, everybody.